All right. Hey, everybody. I'm Ashley, and I'm sitting down with my friends, Jonathan Freeze and Joel Swakowski, also the hosts of our favorite podcast, my favorite podcast, What the Flock. Hey, guys. How are you?
Wonderful. Glad
Good.
to be chatting with you again, Ashley.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
excited.
thanks for having us, Ashley.
Yeah, thank you. I think this is our seventh time that we've done this. So every time it's just been so fun. And
Yeah.
I love hearing your guys' stories. And so that's what I want to do today. I just want to pull on your experience a little bit and hear things from your own life, your real life. So for those that maybe don't know, all of season 7 really focuses on understanding. So, I was, sort of given this direction to talk about the episodes of Christian counseling, criminals, which was an amazing episode, and suicide. But the overarching theme in all of this really is looking to understand somebody else and finding understanding first. So I really appreciate that in every single episode, you showed us the way to have these really, really big conversations about even the most emotional topics. And I didn't hear you get emotional in any of these episodes. I didn't hear anybody get worked up. It was just very clear, very concise. And so I appreciated that a lot because I feel like wherever we look in our culture, when people are talking about these things, it's very emotional, it's very heated. And every episode, you guys just modeled for us over and over. This is how we can have these conversations and look to understand. So thank you. I appreciated that a lot. And as I've been listening to season 7, I've been trying to use some of these tools in my own life. And sometimes it feels wonky, like it feels tense. And I think, well, this is simple stuff, but it doesn't feel easy in the moment. So I'm wondering from your own life if you have stories of a time where maybe you looked to understand somebody and you felt this tension within you. And maybe it's like the old you maybe would have tried to debate them, but you're really looking to understand. Like, what does that feel like inside of you? Do you feel that tension? Or is it just as cool and calm as it is in one of these episodes?
No, my blood boils most of the
Hmm.
time.
Okay.
So especially when let me backtrack here a little bit. This focus on understanding is great. I love it. That's what I want to do. I want to be understood. I want to understand other people.
Mhm.
When my blood boils is when, trying to understand somebody else is met with animosity. Now I'm feeling like I'm feeling misunderstood because a lot of times what happens is we ask these questions. Like you said, it does feel kind of wonky or tweaky when somebody shares a really, maybe a strong opinion or belief about one of these topics, like say criminals or even suicide. That's it's a hard topic to talk about at all. Someone might share a very strong opinion about that, and I could just ask them, like, what's your definition of this term? So often that right there is met with such aggression. And I think partly because a lot of people are using words they don't consciously know what their definitions are. They feel like they know they feel something strongly about it, but they have a hard time putting words to it. And if that person isn't a growth minded person, if that person isn't trying to understand or learn new things themselves, that feeling often feels like the person asking the questions is trying to make them look stupid or something along those lines. So that happens a lot for me is like when I'm really just trying to understand somebody and what they mean by the words they use, and that's met with I'm not being caring, I'm
Mhm.
not, you know, or I'm just quizzing them and trying to prove them wrong. It's like that's when my blood boils. It's because it's this massive misunderstanding of what my intentions actually are. So yeah, I've so many examples of this, but it's like for instance, I went to a meeting with somebody that I care deeply about. There's a lot of I guess you could say disunity among us, a lot of division between me and this person. And I met with him a few months ago at a coffee shop. I had a few questions. I brought a clipboard with me with
Mm.
notes. I wanted to write down his answers.
Mhm.
And as of even still recently, a few months later, I hear from someone else that he's talking about me having a clipboard as if it was
Mhm.
wrong for me to do that, as if it was wrong for me, like I was trying to prove him wrong, when
Mhm.
all I did with the clipboard, I literally showed the guy too. All I did was write down his answers to the questions I asked.
Mhm.
And it's like that's where it's like this massive misunderstanding of what my intentions are. And it's just, yeah, it gets really, really frustrating. So these episodes and the journey Jonathan and when I went on recording them was transformative for me, because as we're teaching these and using these just in the podcast, just with Jonathan and I'm seeing these tools and techniques we have, and the advice we give to people listening start manifesting themselves in my own life. Like I can't help it. All of a sudden, my goal of just really trying to understand people as a first step has grown through doing this, which is great. Because I'll admit, I have a tendency to want to just be understood as a first step. And I want to teach people things. I want to give people the right answers. So this backward step of first letting other people talk, first letting other people explain themselves, me asking them questions to help them be understood has been a really great benefit I've seen myself grow through as we recorded season 7. So yeah, it's definitely something that happens in my life a lot. I definitely feel frustration, but I can see how when we really stick to what we are explaining and really examples of in season 7, when I use that in my daily life, it always leads to these interactions being better than they would have been had I not.
Mm. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first things I think that helped me with understanding someone is just knowing that there's a difference between agreeing and understanding. And I think oftentimes we have those two concepts. When I'm having a conversation with someone, my goal is for them to agree with me or validate my point. And when we say validate my point, I want somebody to say, yes, you're right, Jonathan. Your answer is the correct answer. As soon as I go, wait a minute, if my goal is to understand someone, just to repeat back to them what they believe to their satisfaction, the whole goal of the conversation changes. So oftentimes what happens, and I have examples of this where I've been in conversations with people where they start asking me a series of questions. And, Jonathan, well, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? What do you think about that? And my feeling with a series of questions is that there is a point that they want to prove.
Mhm.
There's something that they're trying to stack their questions up in a specific fashion to then say, ha, got you. This is what I believe, and you're wrong. So what I try to do is I try to skip to the end of that and say, what is it that you want me to understand?
Mm.
What is it before, I can answer all of your questions, but what is it that you want me to understand about your point?
Mm.
So before, and like I said, I'll answer all of your questions. I just want to understand what's your point here.
Mhm.
And let me understand you in that regard.
Yeah.
We had a conversation, Joel and I did. We had a conversation with a friend of ours, and we started to get into, um, art. What was it, Joel? It was artists
Oh,
versus,
it's can you separate the art from the artist, from
Mm.
the artist? So yeah,
so if
because
it,
there's a lot of canceling of art based
Mhm.
on behavior from the artist. Yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
yeah, and there was a whole conversation about being careful with the art and what it is that we're purchasing. Like, do we know, is the things that I buy, is that going to have ramifications? So we
Mm.
had this, we had a discussion with a friend of ours, and eventually I was just like, okay, what's the point that you're trying to make. So after having this lengthy conversation and going back and forth, I was just like, wait, what are we doing? What are we trying to prove here? We keep going back and forth with something. So what is it that you want me to see?
Mm-hmm.
And their response was, well, Jonathan, I want you to see that we need to be careful with how we spend our money.
I agree.
I agree.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and the conversation was done. Literally, Ashley, done.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So it was like, what the point? It's like, just tell me what it is you want me to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you share with me that point that you want me to understand, I can repeat that back to your satisfaction. And then I can decide if I agree or disagree.
Mm-hmm.
But I just think that people are so in a hurry to, and not even, they're not in, I don't believe people are in such a hurry to be right. I believe that people are so afraid to be wrong
Mm-hmm.
that they just want you to agree. Just please agree with me. Not because I want to be right. I'm just worried about being wrong. And I don't want to have to admit that I'm wrong in a belief that I hold.
Yeah.
So, taking apart all of that and getting down to somebody's motive, I can just ask them that and understand.
Yeah.
And if they
Yeah.
don't know their motive, if their motive is to try to prove me wrong, then as I go about understanding them, okay, so this is what you're saying. What you're saying is this. And they go, no, what I'm saying is, what you're saying is A. No, what I'm saying is B. Okay, what you're saying is B. No, what I'm saying is C. Then I can start to go, do you understand what your goal is?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because maybe they don't, right? Maybe they
And then
don't
we
know.
have a whole, and then we have a whole different discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so we're, again, we're just trying to get back to the how and the why.
Mm-hmm.
Why is someone saying what they're saying? How are they coming to the decisions and the conclusions that they're coming to? What is their thought process behind these things?
Mm-hmm.
Instead of going right at, the topic and agreeing or disagreeing. Is it right or is it wrong? Which is the spirit of, season 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's like you have two people
Where it's
that
like,
are,
it
yeah,
depends. And
it
that's where
depends.
these
And
arguments, this
bingo.
argument ends up being argument ends up being an hour long. It's because for an hour we were in the context of this argument. Is this right to spend your money on? Well, what if your money goes to this person? What do you do then? What is your responsibility over that? And where you get in trouble is when I start saying, we all can agree you need to be careful with how you spend your money. That's a principle, right? That's a backward step. But where we get into trouble and where the conversation ends up taking an hour is when I start telling you how to spend your money. Instead of giving up control to you to make those decisions for yourself, uniquely based on you and the situation that is your life, a lot of variables going on there.
Right.
When I start telling you what this looks like is where that's when the conversation gets longer and longer and longer. So what Jonathan did is this backward step. I talk about it. I actually was sharing with a friend of mine the other day, something we help a lot with people when we're learning these communication guidelines we live by, right? We make statements on ourselves, we ask questions, we answer questions. Those are guidelines, right? They're not laws. You don't have to do them. They help build a communication in a profitable manner. But so I'm not beholden to answer your questions. Should I? Yeah, it'd be fair for me to, because I want my questions to be answered. But one of the steps we can take, and what Jonathan really exhibited, is if you're asked a question, you have the right to question the questioner. Why are you asking me this question? And that might, if you do that, that might save you an hour. If the person, to your point, Ashley, if the person is aware of what their ultimate goal is or what this thing they really want you to understand, maybe they're just waiting for kind of permission to be able to share it. And if you give them that right, well, we just saved ourselves an hour, and I can just, either agree or disagree with whatever your point was, or we can at least build the conversation off of what that thing is you wanted me to understand.
Yeah.
Now we can build off of that instead of having an argument for an hour before
Yeah.
we get to that point. And now it's like, okay, well, we're done talking.
Right. Right. I love that. And I think one of the things I wrote down that was mentioned is that agreement can only happen after understanding. And so I think your story is a good story of that, where it's like, okay, we were struggling to find understanding. But then once you ask the question, why are we talking about this? What is the understanding you want me to have? Then instantly it's taken care of. And I think that why question has been really big for me. I am not, it is not like in me naturally who I am to ask why. And actually, I think growing up, it was like, you really shouldn't ask why, especially like a pastor, or like you should just
do what you're told.
Them, do what you're told, obey. Yeah. And so recently I was having a conversation with someone, and it wasn't even a tense conversation. We were just talking and sharing, and he said something, and to me in the moment, I'm like, ask him why. And I'm like, but that's so dumb. I know why. Isn't it obvious? This is why he's saying this. And I'm like, no, I'm going to ask him why, because I don't know. I don't know why it's important to him. And so I asked him why. And he shared something I didn't know. I was like, well, that's awesome. And it's such a simple thing to just be like, why? And I think one of the points too that you made is, you know, if I'm having a conversation with somebody and I'm not asking why, or I'm not asking, what do you mean? What do you mean when you say this? Mm-hmm. I'm not really looking for understanding. I maybe just want to be right. Mm-hmm. And for me, it was like, oh, well, that's a lot of my conversations that don't go well. It's just me looking to be right. Yeah. So I want to go back to something, Joel, that you said. This was one of my questions. So let's say I'm in this conversation with somebody. I'm looking to understand them. I'm asking them why. I'm really genuinely looking to understand them. But they're not looking to understand me at all. And I'm feeling misunderstood. I think that's the story that you shared. What do I do? How do I handle that? Because that's frustrating in the moment.
Yeah, it is. So
how do you handle that, Joel?
Oh, geez. I talk about how my blood boils in those situations. That's what I do. I share with Jonathan how frustrated I am.
Yeah.
So we're leaders. That's what we try to be.
Totally. Great start.
So I start with leadership and mercy and forgiveness. Yeah. Because what we're doing is being leaders. When we give up, because even though I want to be understood, I know I'm not unique to that.
Yeah.
There's maybe different levels of how much a person is wired to have that, but everyone on the planet wants to be heard. We all have something to say. We all want people to hear what we have to say. So that is a universal principle. One of the ways we can be a leader to everyone is to give them first opportunity to say what they want to say. They are given the right. It's also love too. When I'm giving them a value, I'm giving them the platform. You share first. What do you want to talk about? So what that tends to do with most people, because we do have this unconscious brain that is wired according to justice, it's reflexive. What that tends to do for most people is put them in a position that when they're done sharing and when you've satisfactorily heard them, they will then give you the opportunity to be heard. Now, that's not all the time, which I think is the heart of your question. What about those times when the other person's like, yeah, well, screw you. I got mine. I don't care what you have to say. I'm done. That's where forgiveness comes in and really taking this step back of being a leader. It's like, do I have to get my point across? No, there's techniques you can do where it's like, maybe a question you could ask a person is, do you think it's fair that you got to say your piece and I didn't get to say mine? But for me, my step's going to be more along the lines of just like, okay, I guess they don't want to hear me, so I'll just forgive them, and then God can use that value to squeeze them, and hopefully in the future they'll be more caring to the people they interact with. But it's like, basically, can I bear the burden of not being understood, forgive that person, and just move on? So that's what I try to do. I just try to forgive in those situations, and if I can't help but still think about, if I'm still holding on to it, if it's still just driving me nuts, I'll talk to Jonathan or one of my other friends and get this frustration off of me so that I can move past it.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's such a great answer. I want to add that there's a brutality to listening to somebody and fully understanding them, loving them in that moment while not being heard, and then just forgiving them. Like, that's brutal. If you want to destroy somebody,
Yeah,
that's one of the ways to do that. I'm going to love you. I'm going to
brutal
let you.
for the person you're forgiving, right?
Exactly. No,
Yeah.
it's just going to get you ahead in life.
Yeah.
So that's, from the non-compassionate and caring perspective, it's like, if we have all this pain from not being heard, you could go at that person and displace the pain onto them, or you could forgive and let God deal with them. It's like, how brutal do you want to be? Because we could be brutal, but God can be brutal in a whole nother fashion. But there is this, there's a strategy, in my opinion, and how I hear someone. If somebody isn't hearing me or doesn't want to hear me first, I will take on the perspective of, I'm going to hear you completely, and I'm going to understand you. And actually, very rarely have I seen people who want to be understood. Like, that's their objective. Like someone like Joel. Joel is very passionate about wanting to be understood. I will, you know, abandon my desire to be understood from Joel to understand him. Like, he's a teacher. Understanding is like when you talked about the core of who he is, and maybe not the core of who we are, even though everybody does want to. With Joel, it like understanding is, top of his moral code.
Yeah.
Seeking understanding. And so there are people that I talk to, that I engage with, and if their goal is truly to be understood, I have all the faith in the world that they're going to understand me. Because is understanding a value or not? Because if understanding is a value, like to people like Joel, to people like our friend John, to people like our friend Laura, to all of these people, they, as soon as they're understood, they watch them immediately turn around and go, okay, now I'm ready. But so from a compassionate perspective as well, Ashley, here's a compassionate perspective. If being understood is at the top of your moral code, and you walk around, like, it could literally make me cry, and you walk around and people do not want to give you that value. Your whole life, you never stopped asking why. You and I went through that phase, likely, Ashley, where we asked why a million times. There's people on earth that didn't ever stop. And they're treated the same way as when we're kids, over and over and over and over and over again. That these people are literally feeling disconnected from the entire planet because nobody just says, I want to understand you. And I'm going to put all my desires to the side to understand you. Those people will turn around and say, you are the best friend that I have ever had in my life.
Yes.
No one does that. No one does that. And all of a sudden, it's like, why am I surrounded by all of these people who love to teach?
Yeah.
Because I want to be taught. I want to learn. Because they're teaching and providing understanding, and they'll turn around and understand me right after that. So when Joel talks about the leadership perspective, that's what I have.
Mhm.
It's like it's a secret to having, the secret to having the best friendships that I've ever had
Mm.
is being focused on understanding the other person first. So if
Mm.
you feel disconnected from other people, if you don't feel like you have any friends, I'm going to say you probably suck at understanding somebody else. And
Mhm.
that's why you're alone. You're alone because you don't know how to hear somebody else. As soon as you develop that ability, you're gonna have so many people calling you up. You're gonna have so many people wanting to talk to you. It's gonna be wild.
Yeah, it is. It's the heart. We literally could teach people how to make friends. And a
Oh,
step would be like, well, you got to meet a person, right? Shake their
right.
hand, say, hi, my name's Joel. What's your name? Then you got to find some common ground with them, which is really the beginning of getting to the whys. Because once you find common ground, then it's like, well, why do you like the Green Bay Packers? Well, it reminds me of my dad growing up. It's like, okay, now I'm getting to
Oh,
the
now we're
why,
at the
right?
good stuff.
That's how
Yeah.
you build friendship. That's how you make friends. Like there's 3 easy steps for you. It's like meet someone, find common ground, and understand them.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very simple steps. That is just a lost art these days.
Mhm.
Destroying people and getting a bunch of reward at everybody's expense. Great reason to hear other people first.
Yeah, yeah.
Making friends.
Making friends, another
Helping
great
people
reason.
helping people feel cared for.
Mhm.
That's great though, Jonathan. I feel like you just blew my mind as far as like this, um, like people who are lonely and who don't feel like they have a lot of friends. I wonder how often it's because that person isn't trying to connect with other people through just trying to understand them.
Mm.
Like, let me hear what you have to say. There's a good one step. Like, you want to build friendships, start start finding out what other people want to say.
And just
Be that
imagine
simple.
that, like if a whole church community did that, if
Yeah.
if the people who are professed to be followers of Jesus went around and understood people.
Mm.
Like, what is it that you believe? Instead of
Yeah.
me saying, like, I want to take all my beliefs and put them onto you. You
Yeah.
need to believe what I believe because what I believe is right. What would it do to our society or the perception of Jesus and Christians if we said, you know, come to us, all of you who are burdened with loneliness and mental health issues, and you will be heard. You will find understanding for your souls. I think people would go, shoot, I kind of like those people.
Yeah.
I
Instead,
kind of
what
like those
Christians are,
Jesus people.
yeah, instead of their reputation and becoming judgmental, prideful, stubborn.
Yeah.
I love what you're sharing, and it makes me think of, something that you said in one of the episodes was it's really not about winning an argument. It's about winning a brother, and I feel like that's exactly what you're talking about. And who
Mhm.
doesn't, like we said before, who doesn't want to be understood? Who Everybody does. Everybody wants
Yeah.
that. It's value
Yep.
for everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
And these are such simple steps that we can take to do these things. Not maybe easy, but simple.
Yeah.
Simple.
It can be uncomfortable because, like you said, Ashley, it is different than how we're naturally wired to communicate. We
Yep.
naturally want to be heard first. We naturally want to make our point. So it does take some training, some practice to start rewiring how you communicate with people.
Yep.
So yeah, it's a huge benefit.
Yeah, and I've been looking to do it with people who I feel safe doing it with. And there are some people who I've said like, "Hey, I'm just going to practice this with you." Because that helps me a little bit. Like I know it feels weird for me to be like, "Oh, why? Why do you think that? What do you mean by that?" But it's been
Or can I
really,
repeat back to you
yeah,
your answer to your
right.
satisfaction?
Right.
Yeah.
So that's one of the most tense things for me is repeating back to somebody their answer. And I think it goes back to what you said is I don't want to be wrong. If I repeat back this, there is part of me that's like,
Well, what if they
what if
correct
I,
me? What if I got
yeah,
this wrong?
yeah,
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
if
What
I
if I'm
wasn't
found out?
listening good enough? Like
Yep.
I missed something.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thankfully, the people have been really safe to be like, that's not quite what I think.
Yeah, give me another shot. I mean, have you ever had someone repeat back to you, Ashley, what
Yes.
you were trying to say? And have you ever been like, "Oh, that was lame," or were you like, "Oh my god, that was amazing"?
Yeah.
Like,
Thank
thank
you
you.
so much for trying.
Thank
So
you.
it's always weird to the person doing the repeating, but I know when people repeat back to me what I'm saying to my satisfaction, I'm just like, wow, this person really cares. I've
Yeah.
done it to somebody. It does feel weird. Hey, can I repeat back to you what you were saying? I had a phone call with somebody that I had massive, massive issues with.
Mm.
She called. She was kind of frustrated with me, made some great points. I just let her talk and let her talk and let her talk. And then I said, hey, can I repeat back to you what you're saying? I just want to make sure I understand you. And she's like, yeah.
Mm.
So I did, and she's like, oh my God, Joel, thank you so much. I love you. And we talked for like another half an hour,
Total flip,
and
right?
she told me she loved me like 3 more times. It was
Wow.
that big of a value to her. She's like, oh my God. Like I'm all of a sudden I'm on her team. That's what it feels like. I'm on her side. It's like, yeah, if we can all be on the same side if what we're looking to do is to understand, so it's not about winning an argument. I would say we can all win. Everyone can win. No
Right.
one has to lose an argument
Mhm.
if
Nice.
the goal is understanding.
Yeah.
If the goal is to win or to be right, then someone's going to lose.
Yeah.
And and that's a bummer. That's a bummer because we can communicate over these really tough topics in a
Mhm.
way where everybody wins, even if we disagree.
Yes. Right. I love that. Yeah. Awesome. So I feel like, the ultimate answer in all of this is grace, love, and leadership. I mean, if we're doing that,
Yes. Uh-huh.
we all win, right? We'll win a brother and we all win. So I think that sums up pretty much all of season 7.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, honestly, I think
Perfect.
half of the season was disclaimers
Yeah.
and us reminding people, well, the ultimate answer, big picture, is leadership, grace, and love, as demonstrated through the teaching from the season 7 supplementary episode from Paul. Yeah, it's just like, you're right. It was so much about taking this step back. How do we communicate? Because about these really controversial topics.
Yep.
We can get into the weeds on what these things mean a little bit, right? That's usually my favorite parts of the episode where like, let me tell you something you may not have thought of, right? But it was so healthy to have every episode structured in this way.
Yeah.
If we can talk about suicide,
Mhm.
criminals, Christian counseling, et cetera, in a way where everybody wins, even if you haven't changed your perspective. You can talk about the weather. You can talk about where to go to eat. You can talk about who took out the garbage. You can talk about all those littler things that people argue over all the time.
Yeah.
If you can do these really triggering, really polarizing topics in a profitable manner, there's no topic that you can't discuss.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you both. Is there a season 8 coming?
No,
What?
no season 8.
This is
Yeah,
it?
so yeah, this is it. This is
This
it.
is it.
Yeah, we ended with as big of fireworks as we could.
Yeah, it's awesome. Do you have a favorite, like a favorite season or a favorite couple episodes that you're like, okay, people, if you haven't listened to these episodes, these are the must listen to?
Holy moly, that's a tough question.
Sorry.
Wait.
No,
So
I love it. I don't
out of
mind them.
all the
Like everything.
podcasts,
I
like
would
out of
say out of
everything,
all of them, if this is your last season, that means this is our last interview.
honestly,
Yes, and yeah, thank you for being a staple of an interviewer for us too. You've been incredible, Ashley.
Oh,
yeah, thanks, Ashley.
I'm delaying.
Yeah, no,
But
I think the thing that keeps popping up in my head is the God's Nature series that we did in season 2, right?
yeah,
For some reason that's like everything hinges upon that. Like season 1's like a warm up.
Yeah.
Like we're warming up. Season 2 is like bang. This is big stuff. which establishes, I believe, the foundation for everything that we do after that.
Yes.
Yeah, that would have been my answer too. I'll go a different route, but I love what you said, because if somebody says to me, do we have to listen to the whole podcast? It's like, well, there's a benefit to it,
Mm-hmm.
and there is an arc, there is an order. But if you're in a hurry, you have to at least start with the beginning of season 2. You could backtrack and listen to a lot of season 1 later, but you have to start with season 2, episode 1. That God's Nature series is just a baller. But I guess right now, and I would say what was on my mind with the topics we covered today, as far as criminal, suicide, Christian counseling, one of the thoughts I had was the mercy episode, which is like season 5, I think. The reason that's one of my favorites is because we got to talk about cancel culture. And that was a topic that I really like. I wanted cancel culture to be a topic we covered in season 7, but instead of having it be something that's a little bit more contextual, because who knows, like, 10 years from now, hopefully this podcast is still thriving, people are still using it as a resource, but cancel culture may not be as big of a deal 10 years from now, where mercy is always going to be there. So we use the mercy episode to kind of uncover this issue with cancel culture. And the reason that I think of these episodes, criminals and suicide, and there's topics and issues that are connected or surrounding those ideas. Cancel culture, like, in my opinion, I think the Christian church in America may have been the instigator of cancel culture. It's like we're the first ones who did it. And you know what it is? It's like you do certain crimes, or even suicide for that matter, is put in this box of, if you do this, you're never forgiven for it. Where it's like there is an unforgivable sin, the blaspheming of the Holy Spirit. But us Christians over the years have added things to it, where there are certain things. It doesn't matter how long you've paid for the crime. It doesn't matter what your explanation is behind what happened. You're a sinner. You're doomed. You're canceled. So I felt like it very in line with the topics that, or the episodes that were surrounding this interview. So that's one of my favorites, just because I feel like there is this, application of mercy along with understanding people is one of the ways that, like, we can see an immediate change in the culture if people were more merciful, more understanding.
Nice.
You're talking about overnight changes in people's relationships and in their mental health. So yeah, that'd be mine right now. Other than that, it's like it'd be hard to pick through what it's.
Good answer.
A lot of episodes we've done over 2 podcasts.
I love that answer. So then what do we do as leaders? If the answer for this overnight change in people and helping them immediately is mercy and understanding, what's our role in that?
Yeah, it starts here, right? It starts with us doing it when we're talking with each other. It starts with us being the examples of it, and hopefully people see that and see that light coming off of us and are drawn to it.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much, you guys. This was another great conversation. I've got notes from what you've shared, as I always do. I learn so much when I get to sit down and talk with you guys. And wow, 7 years, 7 seasons, not 7 years.
Boy, it kind of feels like that.
It sure does. It sure does.
Like that did not hit my ears wrong, Ashley.
Okay.
No, we're close. We're close. I think it's been 5. So yeah, but thank you.
Wow. Well, it's been such a great journey. And I think one of the reasons that I love your podcast so much is because I know you in real life, and the things you share on your podcast are things that I see in your real life, and you're the real deal. And you're some of the most genuine, understanding men that I know. So thank you for 7 seasons. Thank you for all the other things that you've done to invest into my life and the church as a whole, the world. I'm just excited to see what's next from you guys. And I thank you. I thank you for the work you've done. Thank you for doing it. Somebody needs to do it. So thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Well, yeah, thank you, Ashley. This was wonderful. Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, you too. Bye, guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.